I see the film takes us through the dense forest of Costa Rica and the open seas. I'm sure the journey of making it was as adventurous as that. So we are excited to hear the stories today. I now request director Harry to speak on his vision about the movie. Yes, please, Harry.
Oh, there we go. Hello. Um, the movie was inspired by kind of experiences that I had from being in a coma a few years ago. I was in a medically induced coma, and during that time in the coma, I had visions in my dreams of the ocean, and I kind of wanted to explore something about the ocean, something about the sea, and kind of explore why I may have been drawn to the sea during my time in a coma, and also kind of the feelings of isolation that you feel when you're recovering from a very serious medical incident. I mean, both of the two American characters in the film are experiencing very extreme isolation. They're both kind of in a country they're not familiar with. And um, so, yeah, that's it's a very personal film in that regard. It's kind of like that's about how it can be very difficult to connect with other people, and especially in times of crisis. And yeah, and in terms of making the movie, you brought up the movie was shot on the ocean and in the jungle. It's every single filmmaker in history has said, "Don't shoot on boats," and I didn't listen, and I did it anyway. And now I understand why every single filmmaker says don't shoot on boats. It's difficult to shoot on boats, and we spent a lot of time on the boats. Um, but I'm glad we did it because it's. I think the film has some very beautiful images in it, and I think it gives an authenticity. We shot on actual fishermen's boats in Costa Rica, and the gentleman who plays the fisherman in the film is an actual fisherman that we met in Costa Rica and who had never acted before and was willing to take a chance on us, which was a very interesting and unique experience to work with somebody who had never acted before. But I think it brought an authenticity to the character of the fisherman, and I kind of took his lead a lot when it came to how things actually operate and function on a fishing boat and things like that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, we can understand the closeness you have with the
Hmm.
film. Yes, great to hear that. And now from producer like Annie, you share the journey with his life also. So your insights.
Absolutely. So yes, I do. I share the journey of his life because we are also married. Um, what I really want to say about this film, I mean, there's so much I want to say. I love this film. I love the people who made this film. I think it's extraordinary. Um, and I want to emphasize what an international collaboration this was. Our crew was half people from the US and half people from Costa Rica and from Latin America in general, but mostly Costa Rica, including our producer, Jimena Cortez Ramirez, who I wish could be here with us as well. It was really an international collaboration. You know, we all lived together, we all worked together. We had two languages going at all times. And we made extraordinary friends in Costa Rica, and we really embedded pretty deeply in the incredible fishing village of Tarcolis. And it was just, you know, the most unique experience of my life, and to be welcomed and supported in such a beautiful culture just meant the world to us.
Great to hear that your story. Now, behind these beautiful visuals, we have the cinematographer with us. So, few words on your experience.
Uh, well, for one, thank you all very much for having us. This is such an incredible honor being here, really. Uh, in regards to the visuals behind the film, Harry and I uh, collaborated, I think, very much from a story perspective in regards to trying to communicate a lot of the feelings that are in the script. And for that reason, and I hope all of you have the opportunity to see the film, there are two different visual approaches in the film for both characters. And uh, I think it's very telling. You can feel that very significantly in the film. And I think that was uh, a huge part of the creative approach towards it. So, yeah.
Sometimes we get too much in that thing. We can't find words to explain that experience. I can feel that. So, but we'd like to hear more through questions. I think we'll get answers for that.
Sure.
Okay. So now I open the floor for questions from audience. You can questions.
You're the writer and the director.
Yes.
And you had a real story, medical induced coma, and the real story that is the dreams of Ocean. So, how easy or difficult was it to balance the two into a narrative, into the script?
How difficult was it to balance the kind of the story of the dreams and the kind of the reality of what the movie is? I mean, I think that it always has to be about the characters. So I think that like the characters lead the way when it comes to balancing those kinds of things. I think that like, I think also like inspiration I think is like a building block in a way. So like, when I say the film was inspired by dreams I had during a coma, it then kind of it doesn't all come into place at once, so it like builds on itself kind of slowly as, you write the script. And then when you have a certain idea in mind, it kind of like it locks into place, and then you can't move too far away from kind of like, well, these are who the characters are, so these are the things that they would be doing. So they guide you in a way. And it just becomes almost like kind of practical. Like, well, what would they be doing next? Well, they'd be doing next because this is who that person is. And I think if you're honest with yourself about who the characters are, it leads you in a way, and it's intuitive almost. It's hard to like explain in a way. I think it's intuitive in that like I just know who these people are, so they have to be doing this, and then they have to be doing that, and they have to be doing that. And I think if you don't know who the characters are, and if you're kind of basing it off like, well, I'd like them to be doing that, then you're going in the wrong direction. They have to tell you what they're doing and how that balance works.
And I also think there's a real theme of intuition here. Harry had these visions, these dreams, and followed them just as a character in the film. She says at one point, someone asks her about her research and whether she went to school for this, or like, is she a scientist? And she says it's research based on intuition. And watching Harry create this film has just been about him having these gut feelings, this inner knowledge, and just following it, just like this character does.
I asked the question to cinematographer, please. Actually, the cinematography of the movie is mostly focused on the nature part, like sea, jungle, isolation. So, what do you think initially, in which way you have decided to make this? The influence of the movie after seeing this in the same way, or not in the way in which way you have decided to make storytelling of this?
Absolutely. I think going back just a little bit, I really am driven by the characters in the story and what's trying to be told. And so I think when we are focusing on the young woman character, where we are trying to place her in a backdrop where she doesn't belong, I think a through line of the work that I'm doing and the work that Harry and I are doing together is thinking about what the comparison is of what these images are. And it was important for us to kind of place this American white woman in an environment where she wasn't necessarily 100%. That's not her native space. That's not her environment. And so a lot of the motivation regards of being in the jungle or being in the sea is, placing people in environments where they don't necessarily belong. And, you know, we can't drink the water out of the ocean. I'm not sure we should be living in the ocean. And I think it's that sort of comparison as well that we are trying to present.
Yeah, good morning to the team of this film. What is the reason to select the Costa Rica as a country for to shoot? It was a co-production between the US and Costa Rica. And you said is all your memories under coma. How big the viability commercial angle of this film will go? Does it recover your money?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the second question.
How commercial viability of this film? How you
Okay.
may recover your money as a director and as a producer?
Sorry.
You can.
I think there's a very real reality where this is an art house avant-garde film. This exists within an experimental world, and there is an audience for this. These audiences do exist, but I think for direct commercial viability, it probably doesn't represent something that is going to be at the top of the list. And in regards to recouping our money, we are still very open to finding an active distributor and a sales unit. So maybe that's an indicator.
Costa Rica started as a kind of in addition to images of the ocean, I was really drawn to images of the jungle, and kind of we were like thinking about different countries in Latin and Central America that we could set the film in. But Costa Rica is really interesting because it's a country that's kind of like very, very quickly gentrifying. And so I think that like in certain areas of the country, there are communities that are being very rapidly displaced. When we were in Costa Rica, I was very trying to find the right word. Not alarmed, but it was very surprising to see just how intense the gentrification was in certain areas of the country. And I think that that kind of like reflects what the themes of the film are, and that these are two Americans who are kind of like entering spaces that don't really belong to them and are kind of like not being very thoughtful about their interactions in those spaces. And I think that that's very reflective of a lot of the experiences that I've seen and heard from Costa Ricans, where people kind of come into communities from other countries, buy up property, and kind of kick locals out of their homes. And I think that even though the movie isn't like explicitly about gentrification, I think there are underlying themes in the film about that. And I think that Costa Rica kind of represents this kind of almost encroachment of capital in a way that a lot of other countries in Central America haven't felt quite as intensely as Costa Rica. So I think that it's very indicative of what the themes of the film are. It just made sense in that way. Mm-hmm. Did the government? Oh, no, the government did not financially support the film.
Shall we have some other?
Good morning, team. Actually, I want to ask this question: what were the challenges in front of you while making this movie, and how did you come out with this?
Come out from the challenges of making the film.
Actually,
Yeah. So there were. As with any movie, there are numerous challenges of making a film. It's never easy to pull off a movie, especially a small movie with limited resources. I think a big challenge that we learned very quickly was going to be a serious practical challenge consistently was the unpredictable weather in Costa Rica. We were not shooting during the dry season. We were kind of shooting on the cusp between the dry and the wet season. And so, because we wanted some parts of the film to have rain in it, so we were trying to get the best of both worlds. But it's, you can't control the weather. Our first couple days, we were only able to shoot for the first 2 days, maybe 2 hours, because the weather was so unpredictable and so crazy. Weather apps are not helpful in Costa Rica. They don't tell you anything about what the weather is going to be like. So that was a very immediate challenge, and we had to keep shifting our schedule around in order to accommodate when we were able to shoot, especially on the ocean, where you're limited in terms of what you can do. And if the weather is really bad, you shouldn't even be out at sea. So there'd be times where we'd be out in the ocean and we'd have to just turn around. I think that was kind of practically biggest, the biggest challenge. I mean, and also, shooting in the jungle. There's some shots in the trailer of this kind of wide, expansive jungle. That was a difficult place to get to, but it looked so incredible and it had such a great feeling to it that we really wanted to shoot there. But we were bringing equipment down on ropes on cliff sides to make sure we could get our camera there. And so, yeah, I mean, just when you're shooting in nature, you have to just kind of let it guide you in a way, because you don't get to decide what it's like. I think those are the biggest challenges, but I think that we came out of it kind of with a more intuitive sense of what to do, and we learned along the way of like, well, this is how we deal with this issue when it comes up, and this is how we deal with this issue when it comes up. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, what after looking at the poster, because an ocean is a space where, the boundaries are so fluid between darkness and light, between life and death, and hope and despair. Even the poster, like it's just in front of me, it's so beautiful that, somebody's just coming out of the depths of darkness towards light, where, somebody else is holding out a hand. So I think it's just so, it conveys so much. So another question that I had was that, was this a very cathartic experience for you? So you made this film not to probably of course, when we make a film, it has to be commercially viable, but was it the catharsis, the driving force behind making this film?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I definitely agree that, I think that in terms of a movie being commercially viable, I think a personal movie is always commercially viable. And if you're true to yourself, it's commercially viable, because I think people can tell when something is authentic or not. And I think the more personal a movie is, especially when it comes to smaller art house films, then other people will connect with it because they feel that authenticity. And there is a broadness in specificity, like in that sense. But and I also absolutely agree with your observation. When you see the film, the opening of the film takes place in a fish store, but does the visuals of that scene were designed to make it look like it's underwater, so to kind of like combine those two things as well, to combine dream space and oceans and the fluidity of what that space feels like.
That's beautiful.
Just as Harry's wife, I can say, to give a different perspective, during the making of this movie, Harry was so focused. He was so in the art, in the film, in the crazy schedule and the mudslides and the traffic. And then there were a couple times after we got home, we're just in the middle of the night. I remember at least twice, Harry started crying and said, I almost died 3 years ago. And I made a movie about it. And it was just this extraordinary, just the outpouring of emotion.
So we are connected to the journey of your self-realization through this movie, and the we can watch that movie with that eagerness. So we have come to an end to this press conference. I would like to thank the panelists who shared their insights, visions to the audience, and also to the audience who raised a lot of good questions so that we got to know more about the movie. So thank you for joining in. We would like to present a small memento from our side to the panelists. So I would request the guests to come forward.
And thank you, everybody, as well.
Yes, thank you all